let's actually talk about areas, because like we were talking before, people are still hungry to get out there and they want to be able to buy a home. So I know there's been a lot of changes. Obviously, some areas that were really expensive now maybe are not so much. Areas that were really cheap comparative are now blowing up. So I'm sure you've got your eye on some places. So maybe we can pick 5 areas that you've got your eye on, that if people are looking to either buy for themselves because it's affordable or because it would be a great investment area. Can you pick the top 5 places that you've got an eye on that we should all be watching?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's there's been, like I mentioned earlier, because of the way prices have increased and how it's for many it's become kind of out of reach or unaffordable to buy in Toronto. They've been looking at other options in terms of investments and for even for primary residences. So I would say some of the areas that we've really seen a big move to, and some of the areas that we also recommend clients to consider in terms of affordability and potential appreciation and increase in price down the road. So I'll start off with one. Well, I'll just mention them all, and then we can kind of talk about the pros and cons just briefly. But an area that we're seeing a lot of demand in is Kingston, Ontario. So just east of the GTA. Kingston, as you guys, many of you may know, Queen's University is in Kingston, Ontario, and it's definitely a big university town. And they've seen a lot of investments, a lot of new developments happening in the Kingston area, and it's quite affordable compared to Toronto. We're talking now, when I say affordable, we're talking about probably half the price in terms of average price. So if Toronto average price is $1 million, over there it's just under $500,000 for 2020. So most of these areas, from an affordability standpoint, in the 5 to 600K average price point, you can get a home or a condo. And so Kingston, Ontario is a big one. If we want to go further west, another area to consider would be London, Ontario, which has kind of been on the radar for many people. I would say, for several years now. And that whole kind of Kitchener, Waterloo, London, Ontario area and Guelph as well, those areas have been huge beneficiaries of the spill off, kind of from Toronto. Many people have moved west to those areas. And I think we're going to continue to see that, as they're still fairly affordable. Still, although their prices have drastically increased in the last couple of years, they're still reasonably affordable in the 500 to 600K average price point. So I would say those are also areas to potentially consider. And then if you go even further west, some people have been talking about going out to Windsor, Ontario, and even their surrounding areas around Windsor. Windsor has been historically very, very affordable for real estate. At one point, I think it was one of the most affordable cities of that size in Ontario for the real estate prices, and it still continues to be quite affordable. So, as you know, it's very close to the U.S. People who are moving across to the U.S. often shares a border with Detroit across the river, and so there's been a renewed interest in Windsor for sure this year and last year. So that's something to keep on the radar. And then a couple of more just want to add were at the Hamilton region, which has seen considerable growth over the last couple of years. Now, when I say Hamilton, of course, Hamilton's quite broad. There are certain areas which are better than others. So don't just go invest in Hamilton blindly. Make sure you have a good advisor kind of guiding you into which neighborhoods you want to be in. And it is quite affordable in Hamilton still. And the last one I would say is the Niagara region. Whether it's Niagara Falls or the surrounding region, there's been massive interest in Niagara over the last few years. And I think we personally we see that there's a lot of potential for growth there. And once tourism kind of comes back, once we see some other larger scale developments which are underway in Niagara kind of hit the ground, we do expect Niagara to increase substantially in the coming years. And now this is different from Niagara on the Lake, because Niagara on the Lake is quite a bit more expensive than the rest of the Niagara region. So Niagara on the Lake, in fact, is the average price point is quite high compared to the other cities in Ontario. So it's more of course, because of its wine country. It's got a certain appeal that leads to higher price points. But strictly from an investment perspective, the Niagara region and is quite good to consider moving forward.
Okay, we got those five areas. So you were saying affordability is the number one factor you took into consideration. But when you have people that are coming in saying, I want to get something that will also be a good investment. So, regardless of my circumstances change, they can do something with that property. Are there any factors that make some of these cities better than some of the others?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's certain when we look at from an investment standpoint, you want to look at other economic factors that are going to be a benefit for the city. So it can be the cheapest real estate, but if there's no growth expected there, then there's certainly not may not be the best investment. So when we look at growth, we look at economic growth in terms of, do we see investment in the city from different sectors? Many of those cities, you're seeing a lot of tech investment, and a lot of big tech corporations kind of opening up offices there, that means more jobs. So that's been a huge factor, whether it's Google or Amazon coming into some of these cities. That's kind of helped the job market, and so that's helped the real estate market overall. And we see that continuing even for other growing tech firms. And in some of the other areas, we also look at transit connectivity. So for example, some of those areas, of course, are along the 401 kind of corridor. And some of the others, of course, we're looking at transit in terms of train, right? So is there accessibility in terms of GO Train, Via Rail? Is it still possible to get to Toronto in a reasonable amount of time from those cities if need be? So that's another, major consideration. And so those kind of factors really play a big part in future appreciation and future growth for those cities. And something that we definitely look for when considering investment. Similarly to how we would look at those factors also for local investments. So, if someone's purchasing a pre-construction condo in Toronto, they're going to be paying a little bit of a premium, of course, to the developments that are close to transit, but they know that those are solid, sound investments in the long term. If you're located close to a subway, if you're located close to any other TTC hub or a major highway, those investments historically have been always quite secure and fruitful in the long run.
Yeah, I think this is a really important factor because I know a lot of people, it's a lot of money that they're putting into either their first home or for their move up home. And I think right now, because no one's ever experienced such a crazy market, especially in these outside places, I know for a lot of my friends, they wouldn't have been able to even point out on the map where some of these small towns are. And all of a sudden, because it's affordable and because everyone's moving in, everyone knows what these areas are. I think a lot of people are wondering if they are going to put, let's say, 500K into one of these smaller areas when things reopen. Once we're past the whole COVID life, is their value going to be there? Is there the money they've paid still going to be there, right? I think no one wants to be in a situation where the home that they paid probably peak pricing for right now, if not by the end of the year, would it be worth less in a year or two? So that is why it's good to look into those factors like transportation, like future growth, because it kind of helps cushion. Although there's nothing that is 100% that's going to prevent, let's say, the price of your investment maybe not appreciating or maybe even going down, these factors kind of cushion that blow, right?
Yes, absolutely. It also helps hugely in the event that you're not looking to, unload and sell that property right away, or if you're not going to assign it via an assignment. If you're planning on buying and then actually holding and renting out that property, being close to transit, for example, really helps with the rental price point as well. And you'll see the rents usually historically do very well in areas that are close to transit. They're easier to rent, they're quicker to rent. So that's another factor that investors really look for.